Everyone knows the business cycle has ups and downs. It's called the business cycle and not the business line because it never stays going straight in one direction for too long. It's difficult to know exactly where consumer confidence is at the moment, but we know that since the peaks and highs we experienced in early 2022, demand for trucks has dropped, and with less loads available in the spot market, freight rates had followed the downward trajectory of demand. As demand declines and freight rates decrease, our industry tends to become very cannibalistic, dropping rates lower than necessary in an effort to remain viable and relevant to shipper clients. Volumes tend to be prioritized, while profit margins become a nice to have instead of a need to have. Shippers absolutely know this and take full advantage. Even the shipper clients that want their provider partners to remain viable and profitable have a hard time keeping their freight with a higher price option when there are so many competitors willing to drop their rates lower than necessary to keep volumes and tenders rolling through the door. How does a logistics provider and their true shipper client partners remain on a growth path with these conditions? When demand is high, there's always the perception from shippers and providers that there's not enough time in the day to find all the trucks for all of the loads. When demand is lower, common strategies for weathering an economic downturn, like reducing rates, allowing margins to erode, and/or reducing headcount, do not produce positive results. So when demand is lower, it is a great time to take a step forward by looking at how your organization can become more efficient while continuing to grow. This opportunity for innovation may lead to more automated processes, deeper relationships with your partners, and new strategies for growth that were never considered before. The organizations that see the valleys of the business cycle as a growth opportunity are the ones that will be incredibly well positioned when the cycle starts its upward trajectory again.
As most people in the industry are aware, trucking is a cyclical industry. We are now in our down cycle. We've had an up cycle. We've enjoyed nice, strong freight rates. Freight rates now are loosening up. We're also seeing the fuel pricing come down, which is going to affect and accelerate the drop in freight rates. We've got the seasonal aspect that's happening as we move into the winter months. And so I think we're going to see a bottoming out of freight rates as we move into January and February. They will pick up again, but not as strong as we've experienced over the last couple of years. The last couple of years, a bit of an anomaly if you look historically, but anytime you have an upswing like we've had, you're going to have a downswing. Those companies that haven't prepared for that, likely are going to have problems. And we've seen that with trucking companies that have already announced that they're going to shut down and go out of business. If you're a good operator and you can weather the storm, that's great. Now, what do you do to weather the storm? Pay attention to costs. Make sure that you're getting as much as you can on each load. Take care of your people so that they will take care of you. But most importantly, have the analytics and understand from a lane pricing standpoint where your most profitable lanes are to put the maximum amount of resources in those lanes. Nobody likes a down cycle, but the good news is that after a down cycle, there's always an up cycle. So stay hopeful and be smart as you approach these next 12 to 16 months.
We all know that the market was really difficult, I would say, for the last 2 years with really high rates and tight capacity. Covering freight was a big challenge for our carrier sales guys, but now the trend shows us that it finally stops nagging. And this responds to different variables like, the inflation, war, new Congress, full employment, but especially the factories having a lot of goods and inventory to be moved. And this combined with a rising number of trucks and drivers. If we check on the figures, spot rates are at their lowest point since early 2021. Contract rates are down between 2% and 7% from the second quarter, according to Lodestar. We all know that this won't last forever, but in the meantime, brokers and shippers can renegotiate or even based on their current relationships with their carriers to get better pricing for next year. Obviously, price is not the only thing to be considered, but also we need to analyze the level of service, flexibility, and access to capacity so we can reduce our supply chain risk.